Imagine this. You're living in ancient times. You have a sack of flour, and you want to buy a pair of shoes. You go to the shoemaker and say, "If I give you flour, would you give me shoes?" The shoemaker says, "I need milk. I don't need flour." This is exactly where the problem begins. Everyone has different needs, and the goods they have are different from what others need. To solve this problem, people had to come up with something. Money? In its simplest economic definition, money is this: a universally accepted tool for change. So, money is not valuable because it is inherently valuable, but because everyone agrees that this has value. Today, the paper in our pockets or the digital numbers in our bank accounts are actually just an agreement. You go to a shop, give money, and buy bread. The shop owner knows he can use that money to buy something else. In economics, money has three main functions. First, it makes trade easier. Second, it measures value. In other words, it helps us understand how much goods is worth. Third, it stores value. The money we earn today is still ours tomorrow. So money is a system that people accept. In short, it's like a common language that people say, "Okay, we all agree on this." And thanks to this common language, trade continues all around the world. Now, let's go back to the time before money existed. Back then, money didn't existed for trade, so people exchanged the goods they had. Remember the man who wants to trade flour? He has a sack of flour, but he needs a pair of shoes. He goes to buy shopkeeper and says, "I'll give you a sack of flour, will you give me shoes?" If the shoemaker needs flour that day, or pair of shoes price is a sack of flour, then there is no problem. But what if not? That's when things get complicated. The customer then goes to another shop, maybe trade his flour for milk. Then he takes the milk back to the first shop and take his pair of shoes. So, to get a pair of shoes, he has to make deals with several people. This system is called barter. But the biggest problem with barter is that every seller and buyer needed to have exactly what the other wanted at the same time. That wasn't always possible. And that's why trade was difficult and sometimes impossible. Over time, people realized, instead of going through all this trouble for every trade, there should be something everyone accepts everywhere. Money was born right here. People had already realized how difficult barter was. And right at this point, an important civilization leaves its mark on history. The Lydians. The Lydians, who lived in what is now Anatolia, were deeply involved in trade. The kingdom of Lydia is famous for inventing money and for its wealth. Their capital, Sardis, located in present-day Salili in Manisa, was one of the most important trade centers of its time. It was like a commercial bridge between East and West. During the reign of the famous King Croesus, Lydia became so wealthy that Wikipedia literally states, "In Greek and Persian cultures, the name of Croesus became a synonym for a wealthy man." He inherited great wealth from his father Alyattes, who had become associated with the Midas myth because Lydian precious metals came from the river Pactolus, in which King Midas supposedly washed away his ability to turn all he touched into gold. In reality, Alyattes' tax revenues may have been the real Midas touch financing his and Croesus's conquests. Croesus's wealth remained proverbial beyond classical antiquity. In English, expressions such as rich as Croesus or richer than Croesus are used to indicate great wealth to this day. In addition, the Lydians didn't just engage in trade. They also developed roads that made trade easier. The most important of these was the King's Road, which started from Ephesus, passed through Sardis, and extended to the cities of Mesopotamia. Thanks to these roads, different cities and cultures became connected. They also ensured security along trade routes, allowing caravans to travel more safely. So, they were not just a kingdom that invented money, they were also pioneers in the development of trade. They were constantly trading and building commercial ties with different cities and states. But like everyone else, they had the same problem. Barter was very complicated. One day, an idea emerged. What if there was something with a value that everyone would accept? And at that very moment, for the first time in history, money entered the scene. The Lydians began producing coins made from a mixture of gold and silver. This material was known as electrum. They stamped symbols onto these small pieces of metal so their value could be recognized. Thus, the first coins in history were created. No one had to say, "I don't need flour anymore." That small piece of metal, money, had solved the problem. Want to buy a pair of shoes? Give money. Want food? Give money. Money made everything easier. Over time, the success of this system caught the attention of other civilizations. Ancient Greece, the Roman Empire, they all began minting their own coins. Money was no longer just a medium of exchange. It also became a symbol of power, authority, and wealth. Kings stamped their own faces onto coins to show their power. It also meant, "This money is under my guarantee." And so, what started with small pieces of metal eventually evolved into the paper money we use today, and even into digital currencies. But where it all began was a simple problem between a sack of flour and a pair of shoes.